more clues. This episode gave us a lot more questions than it did answers. Hey guys, coming up for Stranger Things, Season 1, Episode 2, Chapter 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode, especially after the premiere. I absolutely loved the premiere. I thought it was very well done, and I just thought it was, like I said, full of uncertainty and just full of mystery, and this episode definitely continued that tone of not really knowing what's going on. Even though we get more clues as to what's going on and we got more of an explanation, this episode still doesn't tell us much. I mean, we still don't know much more by the end of this episode. We know pretty much the same stuff we knew in the beginning, you know, and I really do like that. I like really where this is headed. I thought this was another really great episode. Not as good as the premiere, but I really think it was hard kind of to follow after the premiere because the premiere was so great. I think this episode was still great. I still really did love it. Thought there was some really great stuff here. Definitely got some E.T. vibes here, and to be honest with you guys, my favorite stuff going on right now is actually surrounding the kids. I thought the best stuff in this episode was with 11 and the 3 kids. I think just their plot is so interesting. Just seeing a way a kid will react to this versus how someone like Joyce is reacting. It's still interesting, definitely, but let's get into this episode because I really want to talk about it. We start off right where the last episode left off. As we know, Michael, Dustin, and Lucas all found 11, and they don't really know what to do. Michael, however, you can tell, really is fascinated by her. You know, they try to get some answers from her and who she is and why she was out in the rain with no jacket or anything because, you know, obviously, a normal person would be out with a jacket, but we know very well that 11 is definitely not human, and they think that she escaped from a mental hospital and that she's some Michael Myers figure or something, and I love how all the boys are reacting differently, you know, since Dustin is the tentative one, he's kind of like not really sure as to what's going on here, you know, he's the one that stutters a lot. Lucas is kind of just like, I'm freaked out, you know, get away and everything, while Michael is kind of intrigued by her and actually wants to know what's going on here, and basically they realize they need to keep her a secret because they found her when they were supposed to be home. So basically, obviously, this is not good. You know, they need to be as careful as possible. And also because of the fact that they found her when, when they were supposed to be home and they weren't supposed to be looking. So they decide to hide her in Mike's basement, and Mike realizes that she can in fact talk, realizes that she can say no, things like that. That seems to be like the only word she can say, and she's starting to learn more words as the episode goes on, but she sleeps in this homemade fort and cries herself to sleep, and it's a really nice scene. I really like the interaction between her and Michael. I thought it was very well done, and just thought it was a very good way to start the episode. And I think what's so interesting about this scene is just seeing the different ways a kid would react to it, because each one of these kids is different. You know, Michael is the one that's just, you know, he is kind of, I'm not going to say normal one, but he's the one that thinks the most realistically. He's the one that basically wants to look at things, you know, he wants evidence, and he's very fascinated by these kind of things, while Lucas is kind of like the guy that's like, okay, you know, Lucas is kind of the one that, you know, he's very independent, and he kind of just looks at things, you know, in a that this is just some girl from a mental hospital and things like that. Dustin is just kind of creeped out, and I like seeing the difference between these 3 kids. I think it's really interesting. I think it really gives us something to work with, and I think really is one of the best parts of this show so far. So Hopper then goes to Joyce and Jonathan, and they're still freaking out as to what happened with Will. She's still dealing with the fact that she got a call from Will, and Hopper's telling her that there's no way this is actually possible, that obviously, you know, Will's gone and everything, but I like the way she connected it to his daughter and said, look, you had a daughter, would you know your daughter's breathing? Because he's saying that, oh, there's no way, she's dealing with Will's disappearance, and anything sounds like Will to her, but I like the way she says that you would know your own daughter by her breathing, and I just thought it was a very well done scene. I really do like that. We don't get a ton of stuff with Joyce's episode. In fact, I think Joyce's stuff we touched the least upon in this episode, but I still like what we got here. I thought Winona Ryder still really killed it here, and basically Hopper tells her he's still going to be looking out for Will, so just give him a call when he finds her, so we get that basically going on. And the next morning, Mike wanted 11 to ring the doorbell so that his mom could take her in and call the right people to help her, because he's thinking that she's lost and that there's definitely something going on. And 11 doesn't let that happen because she tells him the bad people are after her, and the kind of bad people who kill, we find out. And I like that we start to find out more what's going on. And we obviously know that there are people after her. We know there's It's kind of like E.T. very much, and there's a lot of E.T.-esque scenes in here, which I really did enjoy, which I'll get into that in a second, but we then see a flashback scene where Eleven is dragged to an isolated room, and she screams for her papa to help her, and it's revealed, we find out that her papa is actually not Hopper, so forget that theory. Her papa is actually Dr. Brenner, we find out. He's actually her father, and what'd he do to her? Why'd he do it? What's going on? Obviously, we know that he's a doctor, so I'm assuming he thought that something was going on with his daughter, and how'd she get out? Did he give her powers? I mean, there's so many questions going on here that I absolutely love about her character, and so far, Eleven is probably the most fascinating part of this entire show for me, because I just find her so interesting, I find her so different, and that's the thing, is we don't know how these things happen to her. How'd she get her powers? Did she have them before? Did she kind of spook him out? Was she like this all along? I mean, we don't really know how any of this happened to her, and I think it's overall very interesting. How'd she lose, her intelligence and things like that? Because there's definitely a lot that she probably knew, and now she doesn't know, and I'm looking forward to really seeing, them connect those dots, because I don't really know what's going on here, and I'm definitely fascinated into what's going on with that. So I definitely thought that was very well done. We get a little bit more going on with Nancy in this episode, which I did like seeing, and I like Nancy's character overall. I like what they've been doing with her. In this episode, she's trying to be a little bit more rebellious, we see. I definitely did like seeing that. I thought that definitely was well done. We see her with a group of friends, and we'll get into that in a little bit, though, but basically, back to the present, the search for Will continues with the police scouring the town for any clues to his whereabouts, and there's a lot of scenes where they're just looking for him, and meanwhile, continues for Dr. Brenner and his team of scientists in their all-white protective outfits that look like they're out of ET. His team is at the shed where Will vanished, and Brenner calls his findings extraordinary. He doesn't really know what he's finding, but we also kind of get the sense that I don't know if he remembers 11 or not. I don't really know if he hasn't brought her up, but this is definitely very interesting as to what's going on there. I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening with that. And then we get a very E.T.-like scene. I've talked about before that 11 is kind of not like E.T., but this scene very much reminded me of E.T., where Mike is showing her all these different toys and showing her, like, Yoda and things like that. I mean, that is straight out of E.T. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in E.T. is when Elliot is showing, E.T. all of his different type of, toys and candy and things like that. It's such a fascinating scene, and it's very much like that with 11 and Mike. However, it's cut short, we see, once 11 sees a picture of Will and reacts in horror, as if she knows him. So it seems these two have shared some sort of a connection, and basically she eventually ends up telling them, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, that Will is in fact hiding, but not from the bad men, rather from some sort of scary creature. That's what's going on. So they're going to tell Mike's mom, Karen, again, but 11 closed the door shut with her mind. She doesn't want them to go, and I thought that was definitely very interesting that we saw that. I also loved how she didn't know what the word friend was. I mean, that was just so interesting. Little things like that I really loved about this episode, and how Lucas had to explain to her what friend was. I mean, the way that Lucas is like, friend, really? And then he explains it to her. He gets it, though. Like, she understands what he's saying, and I thought that overall was just really interesting. She used one of the dragon figures from the Dungeons and Dragons board they play in the opener to depict the monsters he's hiding from, and the question is, when are we going to see this monster? Because still, by the end of this episode, we have yet to see this monster, and that's very intriguing. The fact that we're not seeing it, the fact we don't really know what's going on, that in general, I just think is very interesting, and I can't wait to figure out, who this monster is, what's going on, how it's connected to everything, because clearly 11 knows what's going on here, and 11 knows who this monster is, so that's something I'm definitely looking forward to, is what's going on there, how this is all connected. That's something I definitely can't wait to see, is what's going on here. This is a very unique situation, obviously, that they're going through. They don't really know, what's fully going on here, but I like that 11 is already starting to connect some dots for us, and it very much seems like the way 11's connected to all this is because she knows what's going on, and again, we don't really know what Dr. Brenner did to her, but it's clear that she knows, where Will is and things like that, and how does she know Will? We don't really know, but I think that definitely is very interesting. We know that Will had some sort of communication with, the paranormal or something like that, from the Dungeons and Dragons game, so we don't really know what's going on there. I think that definitely is very interesting. But like I said, we do get some stuff with Nancy here, and Johnathan that I really liked. Basically, Johnathan we can see is kind of like an outcast right now. No one really wants to be around him. Everyone thinks he's just a weird kid. Nancy, however, is really friendly towards him. She says that she's sorry what happened, and that everyone's really sorry as well. There's probably going to be, I'm not going to lie, there's probably going to be a romance between these two. I'm all for it, though. I think Nancy deserves someone like Johnathan, especially someone that's not like Steve, who just wants to have sex with her, and, he came to school, he puts up missing person, signs of Will, and I just really like that scene with Nancy. I thought they gave her some really good stuff doing this episode. I definitely really like what they gave with her. They give her a little bit more a little bit later on, but I thought overall this was really good. Like I said, these two are probably going to start a relationship, but I'm all for it. I think it's good for Nancy, I think it's good for Jonathan, and I'm hoping that we see more of that as the series goes on. So Hopper then goes to Benny Hammond's diner where they think that his death was a suicide, but he thinks that something weird is at play because there's a missing person and a suicide in town when that just doesn't happen, and he thinks that he's cursed because usually, remember, what did Hopper say? That 99 times when a kid goes missing, it's from a parent or a relative. I still feel that he knows more. And again, I do feel that his kid's not gone. I just feel like it's still out there. I don't know why, though. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But he seems to think that the town's cursed, and I think it definitely is very interesting what's going on there. Meanwhile, Jonathan goes to his dad Lonnie's house to see if Will was there. He's not, but he does give his dad a sign he made with his pictures on it, and they look like they haven't seen each other in a long time, we find out, which is very interesting, and that's understandable as well. But on his way home, Jonathan's taking pictures, and I did like the scenes between Jonathan and Lonnie. You can tell these two don't have really the best relationship, and the fact that even Lonnie's wife or girlfriend or didn't even know who Jonathan was, it just shows how relevant Lonnie is in his life, which by this episode isn't really much of relevance at all. And on his way home, we see John's taking pictures, and let me set the scene with Nancy for a little bit, because Nancy and her friend, Barb, they go to this party, which Barb is convinced is just going to be her having sex and Steve trying to pressure her, and Nancy's saying, it's going to be fine, don't worry about it, and they decide to go to this party regardless, and basically Barb, she says that Barb can be like her guardian or whatever. I thought that was a good scene. I definitely like the way that went, and they go to the party. You don't really know what's going to happen. The other couple that's there is going to have sex or whatever. I'm glad this didn't turn cliche, because I really was like, what is really the point of all this? Why are we really seeing this? What does this have to do with anything? I didn't really know, but we see that they're at the party, and John's taking pictures with the hopes of finding some clues about his younger brother's disappearance when he stumbles upon a party where Nancy's at with Steve, and she's unleashing her wild side of this party. She's breaking free from her normal self, she's shotgunning beers, and pressures Barb to do so, and before Barb can shotgun the beer, she ends up cutting her hand on the can, and Nancy and Steve then go upstairs. She tells Barb to go home, and that she'll be fine with Steve, so to not worry about her, everything's going to be fine there, and Barb obviously is very concerned, because she knows that this isn't really Nancy, that Nancy's just really drunk, and this isn't really who Nancy is or whatever. Now, to be fair, they did have a genuine reason to go upstairs. They all fell in the pool, and Steve was going to get Nancy clean clothes. That is a genuine explanation, but it doesn't change the fact that he just wants to bone her. It still changes the fact that that's what's going on there. We definitely know that's happening with that, and I think that definitely is very interesting. But I think, was there anything else with Michael and 11? I don't think there was, at least. I just thought, I overall really did like the stuff that's going on there, but basically after this, we see the episode at the end. We get some really good stuff at the end of this episode where we cut home to the buyers. Well, we'll get into that in a second. But basically, at the end of this episode, we cut home to the buyer's home where Joyce is waiting for the phone call for another phone call from who she suspects is Will. She thinks that Will's on the other line. And finally, a call comes through. This time, a voice comes through on the other end to confirm that it's Will, but we still don't know where he is. But we can guess that there's some sort of electrical force field or alternate plane where he's existing. We just don't really know what's going on. This basically the same thing happens. The stag overwhelms the call, surge of electricity spikes, and shorts out the phone again. So who is keeping her from answering? Because clearly someone does not want her to answer this call. I don't know really what's going on there, but someone really does not want her to answer, we see, and suddenly music starts blaring from Will's room where the Clash song "Should I Stay or Should I Go" plays as lights flicker in the room, which we heard again before this episode, which is interesting. And the walls start to move in a creepy sort of way that made it seem like the walls were melting or there was a figure behind the walls. But either way, this freaks out Joyce, understandably. She runs out of the house to her car in horror before collecting herself and going back in the house, and we don't know what's going on here, but there clearly is some sort of creature after her, and we don't really know what it is, but we do get the sense it's not just after her when we get to the end of this episode, which I thought was very well done. Basically, we go back to the party house where Barb is sitting on the edge of the diving board, worried about Nancy, who actually has given in to Steve, and it seems like they are, in fact, having sex, and Jonathan's still taking his pictures of the house from a distance when he looks down for a second, and after Barb noticed a drop of blood fell into the pool, it wasn't from her hand that we find out, and it was from a mysterious, frightening creature that apparently is invisible. We don't know who this creature is, but it leaves no trace of its presence, snatched her up, leaving no trace of her behind. Of note to everyone, no one seems to think that she's gone, and Nancy, is with her boyfriend and everything, and that is the way the episode ends. Thought it was a very good ending overall, but let's get more in this episode and talk a little bit more about what's going on. So overall, I thought this was another really good episode. I definitely really did love it overall, but there's a lot to definitely talk about. And like I said, for me, the best stuff going on in this episode was the stuff between Mike and Eleven. I really like their relationship. You can tell that he really trusts her, and she seems to trust him. And the other two boys, Lucas and Dustin, took them a little bit, but it seems like they also are trusting her. And I'm looking forward to really seeing what their adventure is going to be like with her, how she becomes their friend, and how she's really connected to all this. And what was her relationship with Will? It's clear the two do know each other, and she definitely knows of him. So how does she know of him, and how can she get them back? That's something I'm definitely looking forward to, is just seeing really what's going to happen there, because I think that overall is very interesting. We did find out a little bit more about where Will could be, because there was a drain pipe that leads to this laboratory, and they think that Will might have crawled through. The biggest question is Dr. Brenner, is what happened with Dr. Brenner? Did she have the powers before Dr. Brenner did what he did to her? Why did he take her away? Did he know of what Eleven's unique ability was? How did Eleven, end up this way? Things like that. There are just so many questions regarding Eleven, and I love it. I love that now we know very quickly, just in that little short scene, who her father is, and it's not a huge deal, and it is a big deal, but it's not a huge deal, and I think that definitely is very interesting the way they did that. And the question is, why did he do it? What did he do to her? I mean, there are just so many questions as to what's going on there. How did she get out of there? How did she get her powers? I mean, there's just so many things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. I'm wondering if she's going to use Dungeons and Dragons to maybe give them some sort of clue. I think that's going to be very interesting. What's going to happen with that? Who is this creature, though? Why is it taking Barb? Why is it taking Will? And why is it after, Joyce? What is the big question about this creature? What's really going to happen there? I don't really know, and I think that's overall very interesting as to why this creature really wants him. I mean, obviously, this creature is invisible. It doesn't want to be seen, and it's probably because it doesn't want to be taken responsible. And I'm wondering if this is going to be something where we don't see the creature till, the end of the season. I think that really is probably what they're trying to do. They're trying to definitely do kind of like classic horror, or like Jaws or Halloween, where we didn't see the creature till the very end. And I feel like that definitely is what's going to happen here, that we're not going to see who the creature is till the end of the season. And I like that we don't really know what's going on here, because all you can say is the creature. You don't know what it is exactly. You just know this is a creature that doesn't want to be found. It doesn't want to be taken responsible. I think that definitely is very interesting. What's exactly happened with the murder? Obviously, there was someone murdered. We don't know what's going on there. I think that's overall very interesting with what's happening with that. The scientist, does Dr. Brenner have any memory of Eleven? I mean, we know that obviously there's this girl out there, but does he remember Eleven? Does he know who she is? Does he remember his relation with her, or is it erased entirely? I'm not really sure. I think that definitely is very interesting. I think we definitely get the sense here that Will is definitely hiding. He's not. Why is he hiding, though? Where did he go? Who took him? And why are these people disappearing? I'm thinking that this creature is not the bad guy. This creature that's taking them is hiding them from something bigger. And the question is, what is that thing that is bigger that it's hiding them from? Because I think that definitely is very interesting. And I think we're getting the sense that they're definitely going to be found. They're not gone forever, and they're going to be found. I do like that we are very subtly getting answers there, and I definitely really did like that. As far as Nancy goes, I like that her plot started off as just her going to a party and turned into something so much bigger. It's really her, letting Steve have sex with her, and I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. I'm hoping that her and Johnathan have something, because it definitely seems like they are going to develop into some sort of relationship. I'm looking forward to seeing where that all goes, and I'm liking what I'm seeing of Nancy's character so far. I definitely do like her overall. I think she definitely is very interesting. I like that she wants to be, a little bit risky, because I think every teenager, they go through that stage where they want to be a little bit rebellious. And again, I loved all the 90s, not the 90s, the 80s references here. I love the 80s music. I thought that was very well done. And I love how, they are referencing things like E.T., but they're not trying to be, a ripoff of E.T. They're trying to be their own thing, and I definitely really do love that. I can't blame the show for trying. I think that definitely is very interesting. Then I guess the only other question is, why do the phone calls keep shorting out? I mean, Joyce keeps getting these phone calls, they keep shorting out. What's really going on here? Does she hold some sort of ability? I don't really know. But overall, guys, I know what you guys saw this episode. I thought this was another great episode. Really loving the show overall, and I will see you guys. That's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the series premiere of the new Disney Channel series, Elena of Avalor, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.